This one is an extremely rare find. This is a 1966 Kawasaki J1 trail bike, and only 1,000 of them were sold in the US. This is one of 1,000, and I got it for $100. So this was actually one of the first motorcycles that Kawasaki sold in the US, and I think it was kind of a test run. They sold 1,000 of them in the US, and that was it. They were brand new to the US market, and this is one of the first bikes that they introduced. So pretty cool that we have one of them. And I guess this is a 4-speed, 2-stroke, single cylinder. This thing made about 7.5 horsepower at 7,000 RPM. So not very much, but I guess they're supposed to go like 40 miles an hour, which is pretty quick for a little bike. And this one is technically an 85cc. So pretty cool. And it's pretty complete actually. Now that I'm looking at it, the seat was off of it, the tank was off of it, the side covers were off of it when I first got it. I kind of pieced it back together here so you guys can see what it looked like. I've got a couple other parts in the box, but you know, the blinkers are on it, which is very rare. The headlight's still on it. The gauge up at the top is still on it. It looks like the original grip's on here still. Throttle does twist. This model does not have oil injection. The later models did, but you've got the original pipe on there. I believe all the original paint. Tail light, rack, all the original seat. Looks like it's missing the strap that goes around the seat. Gas tank is all original. And then there's 2,864 miles, which is very low. Even has some mirrors, which is pretty cool. I do have the side cover here as well. The previous owner said that he messed with the wiring, tried to get it to run, but just could never do it. And he said a mouse just got in there and went to town. But chain's still on it. Sprockets don't look too bad. I'm guessing those are all the original tires on there. It's just pretty cool. Petcock is missing, and the coil is off of it. It looks like somebody was tinkering with the wiring here. Ignition's off of it. I think that's in the box of parts. Looks like the brake is still working here. Oh, look at that. It's always good when you find electrical tape. He was definitely working on the wiring. How did that survive the trip home? That was just sitting in there like that. Crazy. So yeah, he was definitely trying to get this thing to run at one point. But I guess this thing sat for like 6 years. The seller said that he bought it 6 years ago, and he said he worked on it for a little bit, could never get it to run. And then he said that the previous owner probably owned it, you know, another 20 years. So probably hasn't ran in over at least 25 years. And looking at it, it looks like it's sat for a long time. So hopefully we can get this one running and driving by the end of the video. Alright, little walk around of it. Get a couple close-up shots. So she's pretty rusty, but it does kick over smooth. Those have to be the original tires on there. I haven't looked in the tank yet. Cool little blinkers. Definitely the original grips. Gauge looks like it's in good shape. I think this chrome might come back on the tank. Alright, we got this bike in the garage. Let's start going through it. The first thing we're going to do is look at the box of parts that came with it. So we've got the foot pegs and the kickstand. Looks like they took that off at one point. Not sure why. What else we have in here? So we've got the side cover. Well, that's good. So this is going to go right there. What else do we have in here? We have the other cover for the other side. We've got the chain guard. Looks like a new coil. Yeah, that's brand new, it looks like. And then it looks like a new ignition as well. Alright, and the petcock, the old ignition, some fuses here, there's the boot for the coil, there's the petcock. I was hoping petcock was included, a couple bolts here and there, there's a little cover for the side piece and the airbox piece. Alright, so this thing is mostly complete. We can start by checking the oil, see what that looks like. Here, you can see this hasn't been removed in a long time. See if there's anything in there. Looks like there's some oil on the dipstick. Doesn't look like there's enough. See what that oil looks like. Take a dipstick. Looks pretty fresh. So oil looks good, that checks out. Alright, right side cover coming off. This should expose some of the wiring here. See what we're dealing with. Oh boy. That looks like fun. Yeah, it smells like mouse poop. Gross. So lots of wiring. Alright, let's go to the other side. Alright, this one coming off. So this is where the ignition goes. I'm guessing it's missing all those wires. Yep. Here's the, I believe this is the blinker relay. You've got yellow. I'm guessing that's for charging the battery and for the lights possibly. We've got red, that's positive. I'm guessing this might be for the neutral light. This is the light green. I'm guessing this all goes to the ignition. Because you can see from the stator, you've got light green, white and green, yellow, blue. So all these colors coming through here. And it looks like they were all eaten at one point and then repaired. I'm guessing by the previous owner. Yep. So, that's definitely going to be fun to try to diagnose all this wiring issue. Let's get the seat off next, see what's underneath there, and then we can start taking out the gas tank and looking at that. That popped off. Nothing much to the seat. It's ripped right there in a couple spots, so obviously not perfect. Let's see. Ooh, gas cap looks a little rough. It got really dry at one point. So that's all dry rotted. Ooh, gas tank is really rusty. Shoot. Yeah, that looks really rusty in there. Ooh. That is really bad. It looks like somebody left old gas in there with oil, possibly. Yeah. Oh, that's caked. That's up there with one of the worst gas tanks I've seen. That's some heavy rust in there. Hopefully that's salvageable. Looking at the bottom of the gas tank, you can see the petcocks off of it. Looks really rough, but I don't think it's rusted through at all. Alright, so it looks like the wires go through the frame here, up to the headlight. Up here. You can see they all come through here. Through the frame, up to here, to the headlight. And then there's a switch up here as well. With red, black, red, and then red and yellow. I'm guessing those are for the lights. Did this thing have a horn? Yeah, probably horn. And then, I'm guessing headlights. So those don't really matter too much. The seller provided a wiring diagram for it, which is helpful. So let's go grab that and see what we're dealing with here. Alright, we've got the wiring diagram here, as you can see. So this is the entire wiring diagram, so we shouldn't need anything else than this. As you can see, here's the ignition switch right here. There's the coil right there. So as long as we're getting power to the coil, we should get spark. And this is the stator here. So we need to get voltage coming up through here, through the black wire, to the coil. And we have to get a good ground to the coil, which is the green and white wire here. So as long as we're getting positive out of here to the coil, we should be good. And that is coming from the switch over here. So we need positive from the red to flow to the black and power that coil. Before we do that, let's test for compression and make sure this cylinder is lubed up correctly. So let's take a look. Taking a look at the spark plug. Looks like a brand new plug in there. So somebody was trying to get this thing to run at one point. BR8HS plug. Brand new, so it's never ran before. Let's take a look at the boot here on the coil. You can see wire is exposed. We're going to cut that back anyway, just because it looks a little crusty. Expose that fresh wire there. That looks a lot better. Just inspecting the boot, it looks like a brand new boot. There's no rust in there at all. So we can put that back on. A lot of people tend to give up on these projects when it comes to wiring. That's how you find a lot of projects for cheap. People get into the wiring, decide to give up because they can't figure it out. So hopefully we can today. But that's all hooked up properly. We've got the coil. Let's just check that. We've got black going to the coil. So that is going to be positive coming in. Let's see if it's hooked up correctly here. And then you've got your green and white. That's going to be negative going down to here. And that should be ground out to the frame, I believe. Let's see, where does that ground out? Take a look at our diagram. And that's going to be ground out by the magneto right here. So green and white go into the magneto. And as you can see, there's green and white going down in there. We don't know if it's ground out yet or not. We might have to check that. But it is going down there. So if we don't have a good ground, that could be a potential issue. Now, because this thing hasn't ran, or at least turned over in the last 6 years, let's lube up the cylinder a little bit. Penetrating oil, get that going. And we'll slowly turn this thing over with the flywheel. And then we'll put a little bit of the Marble Mystery Oil down there. This will help free up any rings that are stuck. Alright, and we'll slowly turn this thing over until it gets smooth, which it already feels pretty smooth. Let's see, which way does the flywheel rotate here? I believe it's this way. Let's just check. We'll kick it over. Yep. Pretty darn smooth. Alright, that definitely feels smooth. Obviously we're not going to have spark because the ignition is not even hooked up. We don't have a battery hooked up, so we can't test for spark at this point, but we can test for compression. So let's do a quick compression test on this thing. An older 2-stroke, I'd like to see 120, but it's probably not going to be that high. Alright. So as long as the head gasket isn't blown and the rings aren't completely stuck, we should be fine. I didn't hear any knocking in the bottom end or the top end. There we go. Thought that was stripped out for a sec. Alright. What do you guys think we're gonna get? We're hoping for right around this range here. 120 would be perfect. We're gonna do throttle open and give this thing a couple kicks here. Hopefully it's good. Oh yeah. $150. That's with oil down it, so I'm guessing we're probably close to 120, which is pretty darn good. So, compression checks out. So we're on the right track here. All right, next step is getting spark on this thing. That's the hard part. All right, before we even attempt to look at the spark, let's see if these points are clean. There's one set of points right in here. It's really hard to get to, so let's get that flywheel off. The lock washer and the nut. And now it's threaded right in here, so if we have a puller for it, we should be able to get that off. Might be a little small. I think it's going on. Perfect. Now that should pop right off of there. Here we go, let's see what happens. Alright, looking at the stator. See if there's any burnt windings on there. Doesn't look like it. Looks to be in okay shape. There's the points right there. And those are just caked. Those are really dirty. See that? All that gunk in there. So those definitely have to be cleaned. Good thing we checked that, otherwise we'd be chasing spark forever. That condenser might be bad too. You might have to swap that out too, but we'll see. It looks pretty clean. Alright, just gonna douse this with a little cleaner. Then we've got our little file here for points. Just gonna pull up on that and then just kinda put that in there and go to town here. Check that out. And make this even as possible. Spray that off in there. Now, since we're in here, we can take this plate off, the stator plate, and check if that green and white wire that we saw from before, right in here, that needs to be ground out for the coil. I want to make sure that's ground to the engine behind here somewhere. It might be ground to the actual stator plate. Take our pen. Mark that line. Now we know where to put it. It's on there pretty good. Oh man. Oh. Ooh, I hope I didn't strip that out. We're gonna need the impact screwdriver for that. Big whack. Oh. Something like that. Doesn't want to come. Oh shoot. That's stripped out of there. Alright, I'm not going to mess with that plate anymore until we know there's an issue with it. So we're going to put the screw back in and not mess with it until we have to. So we can actually use the multimeter and see if we have a ground going to the engine from the green and white once we get to the coil. Alright, before we put the flywheel back on, let's just check out the flywheel for any damage here. And I'm not seeing any damage so far. We'll see if it's magnetic. Yep. So flywheel is magnetic. That's good. We can get that back on for now. So this lines up with the Woodruff key here, which is still in place. So we can get that back on. There we go, just like. All right, looking at the wiring, we can now start to hook up our ignition here, our switch. This is the old one. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. It feels fine to me. You know, it doesn't look like it's been taken apart. And it has all the correct wiring to hook up here. I went around and made sure that we have all the wires coming out of here. We can also go around and make sure that nothing is touching inside the frame. So we can do that before we start hooking things up. Where the ignition switch is. So if you're looking at the paper here, let's take a look. The ignition switch is right here. So we need blue. Okay, we've got blue. We need yellow. We have yellow. We need red. We have red. We need black. We have black. And then we need the blue and white here. So blue and white is going directly to the rectifier. Let's just see if that's correct. Blue and white goes up right to here. And there's a little rectifier there. So blue and white is going directly to the rectifier. All right, that one's correct. Next one, we've got white going directly to the negative side of the battery, which is 6 volt. So this is a 6 volt system. So white, we've got directly going to the battery. So where the heck is white? All right, so I guess white is hooked up here. So that goes directly to the battery. All right, that's correct. And then we've got the positive lead to the battery down here, which is going to be, this is brown, like maroon color. And that is right here. So it looks like somebody was using an alligator clip for the positive side of the battery here. So I might switch that out with a different connector. But that goes directly to, let's see here, the turn signal relay, which is up here. And then that connects to go to orange, which is a red wire here, but you can see the orange here coming through, so that's correct. All right, and then we've got black going directly to the coil, which we saw before, that is correct. And then we've got the red wire coming out, and that goes to the lights and all that, which I believe it does. We can check that a little bit later. And then we've got the blue going directly to the stator. That looks correct. You can see there's a light blue down in here. So everything looks correct to me. Let's just take a peek inside the frame to make sure there's no shorts. So right in here, just to make sure we don't see any wire exposed going on the frame. You can see a mouse was living in there. A couple mice probably. Still smells really gross. No shorts going there. That's all going up to there. Yeah, everything looks pretty decent. All right, now we can go ahead and temporarily hook this up. We're just gonna be using electrical tape for now until we know we did everything correctly. So white to white. Put some tape on that. All right, that one's good. We've got green to green, just like that. We can tape everything after here. That's hooked up. We've got blue, white, going to blue, white here. Yellow to yellow. Red to red. And then black to black, I believe, is the last one. We might actually leave those exposed because I might want to test them with the multimeter to see if we're getting voltage everywhere we need. Let's get the battery hooked up and see what happens. I think we might put a fuse in between the positive side of the battery just in case it has a short. It'll blow the fuse before it wrecks the system. Alright, we got the fuse hooked up here. This is going to go to positive. And then we're going to have the white go to negative. Hopefully this can sit in the ground here. Yep. Alright, now we're going to see if that fuse pops when we turn the ignition on. So we're watching the fuse here. Let's see, I'm guessing it probably will. Make sure those wires don't touch. Alright, fuse didn't do anything. Fuse is good, no smoking from anything. Did anything turn on? Nothing turned on. Alright, nothing turned on at all. Let's see if we're getting power anywhere. Let's see what we're getting. Positive 0.6 volts. Let's see what we're getting at the battery. There's 6 volts, so battery is at 6 volts. Let's go red, black. Yep, we're getting 6 volts, so we're getting positive going to the red. We need positive going to black. Oh, that is positive coming in. Perfect. So we're getting positive to the coil, positive to red. We have black, we have blue and white. Where does that go? Blue and white goes to the rectifier. I believe that should be positive. Let's see. Yep, that's positive, that's good. All right, and then what else do we have? We've got the green, or the light green. That should be negative. We're not getting the ground there. Maybe we're not in neutral. It says we're positive there. Oh wait, let's see. Yeah, it says we're positive there. We should be negative. So that goes down to the neutral wire right down here. So if that's not in neutral, it won't ground that out. So let's just ground this out to the frame to tell the machine we're in neutral. All right, now we're gonna put a ground going to the neutral wire. We want that grounding out. So that's gonna trick the machine into thinking that it's in neutral. And it looks like our light still is not working. I believe that's the neutral wire going up there. Yeah, it should be. All right, let's see if we're getting negative to it now. We should be. For some reason, we're not getting negative to it. That's really weird. Why don't we just go like this? Now let's see. We should be getting negative. Maybe we don't have a good ground going to the frame. I don't think we have a good ground going to the frame, because we're still not getting negative. That is really odd. Let's go directly to the frame, or the engine I should say. Yeah, we're not getting a good ground. So our ground wire going from white into here obviously is not doing much. That's not grounding out anywhere. So there should be a secondary ground, you would think. Let's see what we get here. Nothing. Let's go like this. Let's go directly to the frame from the negative. Now let's see if we're getting anything. There we go. Now we do. We went directly from the battery to the engine, and now we're getting a good ground. So for some reason the engine wasn't grounding out the neutral wire. So from the frame to the engine, I think we lost the ground, but now we're good. So everything is checked out. We have every single wire where we need it. So technically, if we turn this thing over, we should have sparks. It's kind of exciting. All right, I doubt it's gonna work. This should be interesting. Oh, the neutral light's on now. That's good. Oh yeah, look at that. Great spark, no way. That is amazing. Wow, it's a really good spark. You guys seen that? Wow. I cannot believe we just got spark in this thing. So I think the problem was the ground the whole time. So look at that. Neutral light on. All right, we can start putting these wires together here. Get these soldered up correctly. Then we can heat this up. Let dry for a little bit. Then we'll do every other one just like that. And that's a solder joint right in there. So that's never coming undone unless you cut the wires. All right, everything's soldered up. This is going to mount right to the frame here. Let's do that, and then we'll get the battery mounted right in here. All right, these can kind of get tucked in here. Oh, looks like that tab broke off, so there's only one bolt. Because the battery is going to hit that. I wonder if we can just put it sideways like that. You know? I think we can. I think that's what we're going to do. That's going to go to negative here. Like that. And our positive wire. Guessing this one gets mounted up here somewhere. I'm guessing right there. Maybe we should put the battery the other way. Because that one might be hitting negative, which is probably fine. Let's see, maybe it can go up like that. Alright, and this is going to get hooked to the positive. Close our fuse up. And this can just get routed this way over here and up like that. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, working on the switch. I believe we found the horn button in the box of parts. We can put that in. That goes right in here like that. I'm guessing. And then, yeah, this is the horn button here. So, and the spring goes on. Alright, we got the horn button hooked up. We just turned this thing on. Let's see if the horn works. There we go. Horn's working. That's working good. The lights are working. Nothing coming on for the front or the rear, actually. Yeah, it seems like the lights are not working yet. Blinkers still working. High and low, that works. Yeah, for some reason the lights aren't working. Maybe it has to be running. Everything's hooked up. We got all the wires tucked into the frame. Everything's looking good. Handlebars are on, clutch lever's on, brake lever's on. And then all the wires are tucked into the frame over here. Looking good. We have to get the coil mounted yet. But yeah, she's coming along. All right, we had to fish the coil all the way up through the frame and then mount it right here. And then the coil wire comes through. We tried installing the tank and it hit the coil. That's why I figured out it had to be inside the frame. So that's all tucked away in there, all bolted down, good to go. So now we can start working on this carb. So the carb is right here on it. To get this carb off, you take this little cap off here, and you can get a screwdriver through the side, and there's a clamp on the side holding that carb to the side of the engine. So let's get that off and start digging into that. Right now it looks like it is working. The slide's working properly. That gives us a little window into there. Let's see. This can slide out. The gas line coming through as well. There we go, it's coming. There we go. There, okay. Carb is out. Get these rubbers off of it. Slide coming out. And the choke can come out of here too. It seemed to be. Alright, carb is officially out. Let's see if it was the original carb. Yep, original Mikuni carb. And then here is the choke. Let's pull the choke lever. And that is working great. And then there's the slide. Working great. So those two things work great. Well, let's start digging in to this little carb. See what's going on with it. Maybe the seller rebuilt it, and we'll see. Alright, here's the carb. It looks like newer gas line on here. So it kind of leads me to believe the seller, the previous owner, maybe rebuilt this thing. Or at least cleaned it out at one point. Let's see, we'll get this gas line off. Doesn't look like gas was ever down the gas line. Alright, let's see what's going on the inside. no gas in it. Oh yeah, there is. I don't think it was rebuilt. That looks like old oil. Alright, let's take a peek. Woo! Yeah, a little gunked up in there. Big chunk of something in there. Pretty darn clean though. It's not like, you know, all crusty. It's just old oil in there. So it doesn't look horrible so far. Here's the float. Let's see if that comes out. Wow. It's coming right out. Pin and float. I don't hear anything in there. A lot of times these develop pinholes. These are just little brass floats. Doesn't appear to have any fluid in there. Needle came right out. That's a good sign. Tiny little needle. Looks good too. Alright, seat looks really clean in there. Yeah, this is really not too bad. I thought for sure it would be worse than this. Let's take a look at the main jet. Emulsion tube and main jet. Let's see if it's clear. Main jet was clear. Running a 130 main. As you can see, that's perfectly clear. Alright, the little pilot is right down in here. Let's get that out. Little pilot. Oh, that one's clear too. Wow. It's a 20 pilot. And what's funny is the hole for this seems really big. It's clear, but it looks way bigger than a 20 pilot. So we're going to take another 20 pilot and compare them, but I think that's too big. I think somebody drilled that out. And this one should have a little air screw somewhere right there. Let's see how many turns out. We are 1.5. So I believe that was set correctly too. Little spring. Alright, that looks good. So this one actually doesn't need the ultrasonic cleaner. We can just blow this out with an air compressor, a little brake cleaner, and we should be good to go. Alright, so here is the size 20 pilot we found in there. And the hole looks really big compared to even a size 40. The 40 is smaller. So the smallest size I have is 40. That is a similar style. And if you guys can see that, the hole is way smaller for the 40 too. Look how big this is the 20. You can see the blue going through. And you can't for this 40. Oh, there you go. Look how much bigger the 20 is than the 40. So this is like a 60 pilot we've got in there. So we're going to put the original pilot back in. If it runs like crap, we'll try replacing it with a 40. And hopefully that's small enough to, you know, get it to idle and everything. But yeah, I think it was definitely drilled out at some point. Alright, carb is all back together, looking good. You can hear the float moving up and down in there. So let's get that reinstalled back on the bike. Alright, carb is all back on. Let's make sure it works here. Slides going up and down. Let's check the choke. I believe that's working. Let's see. Yeah. There we go. Alright, choke is working, slide is working. Let's start working on this gas tank. We're going to probably clean it out as best as we can, and then try to get that petcock to work. Let's see. Yeah, you can hear all the rust in there. It sounds really bad. Let's try to get this off of it. vice grips and see if we can latch onto that. Oh man, it's not looking good. This part of the petcock is stuck in there. It's not wanting to come out. There we go. You can see all the stuff that came out of it. Yeah, basically drilled through a pile of rust there. Alright, let's see what comes out. See, this is nasty stuff. This is all rust chunks that came out here as part of the petcock. Alright. Top part doesn't look horrible. I mean, it's still packed full of stuff. If it will come. There we go. Let's see what's in here. Actually, it looks pretty clean in there. Little filter, screen, a little rust in there. It's not horrible. That was just like that. Alright, we can get this ring off here. See what's going on underneath there. This whole thing can pull out of here, I think. Feels pretty gross. Yeah, she's pretty clogged up in there. Alright, new O-ring in there. Let's get that on. So this is going to go right here, because gas is going to continuously flow through the petcock, but now we can shut it off right here with this switch going to the carb. So we can install that and then get our filter on there. Alright, petcock is looking good. We've got the shut off switch here, and then we've got the filter going down to the carb. So that's kind of the setup there. So as long as it doesn't leak from the petcock, we should be good. All right, we're getting pretty close to the first start here. Let's drain out the oil and change that out. So down here is the drain bolt, 17 millimeter. Oh. That looks like brand new oil in there. Alright, we're using some 10W40 wet clutch oil. We'll start off with about 300 milliliters. See if that's enough. I don't think it will be, so we're gonna add a little bit more. then we'll check it on the dipstick, see where we're at. Take our funnel out. Dipstick going in. Nothing even comes up on the dipstick. Ooh, and it's leaking out right here. Look at that. It's leaking out everywhere. So I don't know if this clutch is supposed to get oil to it right here. I don't think it is. So I wonder if the seal in there is bad. We'll have to check that out a little bit later. I'm guessing the seal, let's see, when you pull in the clutch, I don't know. That might take oil in that area. I wonder if that's supposed to be sealed off in there. Because you can see the clutch right here. Yeah, we might have to seal that off. Let's see what that looks like. We are going to seal that off after we know that the carb doesn't leak. All right, we mix up some 40 to 1. Up. Something's leaking. Oh, what the heck, our little shutoff is leaking. You can see the gas going down the filter. Alright, we got a new little shutoff switch there. No longer leaking, we've got gas in the filter. Doesn't look like the carb's leaking either. This gasket cleaned up a little bit. And apply a little bit of the gasket maker to the old gasket. Just because I don't trust that. And we don't want oil seeping past into the carb here, on that part. Let's see what that does for us. Dipstick going in. As you can see, it's perfectly up to the second line there. One more dip. See that? Kind of hard to see, it's so clear. But we've got plenty of oil in it now. Alright, last step before we can attempt to start this thing up. Let's get the spark plug in. Well, we've got good compression, 150 psi. We have great spark now that we fixed the wiring and the ignition system. And now we've got fuel going to the carb, it's not leaking, and everything's pretty tight. So let's go ahead and do the first start attempt in probably over, I'm guessing, 20 years. So let's see if she fires up. Hopefully that exhaust isn't clogged up. Uh-oh, it's slipping. All right, I've been playing with the clutch a little bit. It seems to be getting a little bit better when you kickstart it. Let's try it again. All right, we made a small adjustment to the clutch. Now it's grabbing a lot better when you kickstart it. Let's try it again. All right, we put gas directly down the cylinder. Let's see what happens. All right, we took the carb cover off here. Let's see if we can get some gas down directly in the carb. It's not wanting to go. That is very strange. With gas down the carb. All right, we're gonna hold it wide open here. Maybe it's just really flooded out. See what happens. Oh. She runs. I don't know if that crank seal is junk or what. But it is not idling at all. It could be that pilot too that was drilled out. That thing's really big. But she runs. Alright, bad sign, but it fouled out the plug. So we put a new plug in. Let's see what happens. Idling now. Too bad. Still a little bit foggy. All right, we got the foot pegs on, we got the other side cover on, we got this side cover on, we put oil down it again. So everything is good to go. The only thing left is the seat. So let's get the seat on, and then we can attempt to take this thing for the first ride. Seat going on here. I doubt this is going to hold. Maybe it will. Not going to push my luck. That looks pretty good right there. So maybe it'll hold for a little bit. See about the front one. I don't think so. Nope, not holding on the front one. Well, looks like we're going to attempt to ride it without the front tire pumped up. We'll have to take it kind of slow, but we'll see if it goes. So, without further ado, let's go give this thing a test drive. Well, I'm actually surprised at how good this thing runs. It's a little boggy, but once you rev it out completely, it actually gets up to speed and goes pretty good. I was going 40 on this thing, and it still wanted to climb. So I'm guessing it probably goes around 50, 55 miles an hour, which is pretty good for this little bike. It could be boggy because the gas tank is full of rust still. So I wonder if it's kind of clogging up that passageway going into the petcock. And it seemed like it was kind of running out of gas here towards the end of my ride. It's in the gas tank passageway or the petcock got clogged again with rust. I mean, that thing is heavily rusted. So we'll have to let that sit for a week with vinegar in it and then some deruster. And hopefully that eliminates that problem. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty tight. There's not a single drop of oil or gas coming out of this thing. There's a little bit out of the exhaust right here, you can see. So the bogginess could be a partially clogged exhaust as well. We'll probably take that off and see. But you can see right there, some sludge coming out of there. So that could definitely be the case. And most likely it is. The little end of it here is very, very small. So I'm guessing it's all carboned up in there. But other than that, I mean, it goes through all the gears, suspension feels good, clutch works, brakes work. So for $100, I think we did pretty good. It obviously took a ton of work to get this one to run and drive, but in the end, we got a pretty cool looking bike. And the nice thing is, only 1,000 were made. So looks like we are going to spend the week soaking the gas tank, try to get rid of most of that rust, just so it runs a little bit better. And then we're going to take off that pipe and try to clean it out. And then you can just bang on it and try to loosen up that carbon. But I'm guessing it's just packed full of carbon. The other thing we have to order up is a front tire for it and tube, and then the front headlight. And then this thing should be all finished up. But yeah, I mean, I'm just surprised this thing ran today. I had very, very low expectations for this bike. You know, seeing the box of parts, you know, it sat for 6 years, the wiring was cobbled together, it was just a mess. So just to get this thing running and driving today was a small miracle. And I'm happy we did it though. We probably spent like 8 hours working on this bike, but in the end, it does run and drive. And with a couple small fixes, I think it might run and drive pretty good. So hopefully you guys enjoyed picking this one up. You know, being one of 1,000, it was a very rare bike. And I think it is worth, you know, taking it all the way down and maybe restoring this one, considering it's such a rare bike. The only problem you run into is there's not many parts available. And luckily, you know, this one has all the parts on it. It is complete. So really, if you wanted to do that, all you would have to find are the engine components like seals, bearings, a piston, and stuff like that. But we're gonna do some research on it, see if we can find engine parts for it, and then maybe a part 2 of tearing it all down and redoing this one. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you guys have ever seen one of these bikes before, and what you thought of the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Stay tuned for next video, and until next time, we are